What's going on, muscle monsters? Hamad here from IQ Physique. Align was kind enough to bring me on his channel so I can reveal this one advanced workout method to build muscle fast. Now, it's not really talked about, but it's absolutely essential to make gains past the newbie stage. When you get past the newbie stage after a year or so of consistent lifting, progress just isn't happening as fast. You might even just stop making progress completely. So then how do you make progress? How do you do more reps and lift more weight over time? Assuming that the fundamentals are taken care of, meaning calorie surplus, adequate protein intake, and progressively overloading strength training, then you need to take things up a notch if you want to make gains past the newbie stage. So the question is, what should you focus on to build muscle past the newbie stage? Dr. Schoenfeld and colleagues conducted a meta-analysis, which is a pooling of scientific literature, and analyzed lifters lifting under 5 sets per muscle group per week, 5 to 9 sets, and above 10 sets per muscle group per week. They established a dose-response relationship between volume and muscle growth. That means as long as you recover, the more sets you perform, the more muscle growth you experience. But here's the problem. That meta-analysis mostly studied untrained lifters, so they're pretty much making some newbie gains, and honestly, below 10 sets per muscle group per week really isn't that much. So Schoenfeld and colleagues conducted another study in which they had participants do 1 set, 3 sets, or 5 sets per exercise per day, and they established another dose-response relationship. This time it's with trained lifters and there's a lot more volume. Actually, the more volume you did, the more muscle growth, even for arms being trained for 30 sets per week. 30 sets, and they found that that group that did the most volume gained the most muscle. So the ones who did under 30 sets didn't gain as much. Now, for lower body, there were 3 different quad exercises each day, so that means a group who did 5 sets per exercise did a total of 45 sets for quads per week. And again, they gained the most muscle mass as well. So as you can see, the more volume you lift, the more muscle growth. So it's clear you need to do more volume, but there's a problem. The more volume you do, the more fatigue you experience. The study was only 8 weeks long, and that means that if you had maybe another population, or if it was for a longer period of time, that participants would experience overreaching due to the high amount of volume and thus the high amount of fatigue. So in the long term, they might end up making less gains or have to have a period of very low volume just to recover. Remember that strength training is a stimulus, and that stimulus causes fatigue that we have to recover from just to get back to baseline. Only when the stimulus is adequate and we have enough adequate recovery to return to baseline, then we can adapt, meaning we build more muscle mass. Dr. Mike Isertel is an expert in our field for programming for muscle hypertrophy. He knows how to maximize volume while managing our fatigue so that we can make as many gains as possible. He coined these terms. MEV, or minimum effective volume, is the least amount of volume to perform to make some gains. Then there's max adaptive volume, or MAV, which is like a range of volume that we will make the best gains on. Then there is max recoverable volume, or MRV, which is the max amount of volume that we can do and just recover from. So here's how you program for muscle hypertrophy so that you can push up your volume, because we know it's the key driver of muscle hypertrophy, but manage fatigue. So here's what you do. You start out at your MEV, your minimum effective volume, and you walk your volume up over time, eventually leading to near or at your max recoverable volume, or your MRV. For example, let's say you're focusing on chest growth. What you may do is just focus on chest, maybe put other muscle groups with a little bit of lower volume, because you can only handle so much total volume for all your muscle groups. So maybe you only do this tactic for like a couple muscles. So let's focus on chest. Let's say you start out at your minimum effective volume and you want to walk up your volume. So maybe the least amount of volume that you can lift to make progress is 12 sets per week. Now, let's say you increase that to 15 sets the next month, and then you do 18 sets per week for chest the next month. Well, that's 3 months of increasing volume over time. That in itself is really progressive overload. But what are you gonna do? Just keep increasing volume over time? Let's say that last month in which you do 18 sets for your chest per week, you can't really push up the volume more. It might be your max recoverable volume. You just barely recover. So since you can't really do progressive overload for your chest, you're going to have to backtrack, and that will allow you to recover. So after that month, you may have a deload, which is a week long in which you maybe reduce volume by 50% and your load by 10%. So it's going to be a pretty light active recovery week. Or maybe you have a strength mesocycle in which you have lower volume, but you're still training hard because you're going to be focusing on strength, so lower rep ranges, and that's going to allow you to recover a little bit from high volume and also desensitize you to high volume so that after that month you can climb back up with your volume like you did previously. If you do this cycle of starting at your MEV, climbing up to your MRV, going back down, and then starting the process over again, you're going to be able to build maximum amount of muscle over time. And if you don't do that, it might just happen that you don't do enough volume, or you do too much and you just keep your volume there and you don't end up recovering. Your body is dynamic. Now, you need to figure out what is your minimum effective volume for a certain muscle group. What is your max recoverable volume? You need to experiment and quantify how much you're lifting and what are the other variables, because you may be in a calorie surplus, or maybe you're sleeping really well, or you have low stress. That's going to allow you to do more volume in the gym. Or let's say, life hits you, you're really stressed, you're not sleeping enough, you're not getting enough calories or protein for whatever reason. Well, then your recovery is going to be impacted and you won't be able to recover from as much volume, meaning that your MRV might be lower. So you might hit a ceiling. And that's why having periods like that deload I mentioned or a lower volume strength block is so crucial once you get past the newbie gains. Alright guys, that is the video. Thank you for watching. I really want to thank Align for letting me be on his channel once again. He's an OG. I've been following him for literally years, right when I started my own fitness journey. So, he's a true OG, so I'm definitely grateful to be here. Again, my name is Hamad. I'm the owner and founder of IQ Physique. I have my own channel. It's called IQ Physique. I'm sure Align will leave a link in the description, so you can feel free to check me out. Make sure you give this post some love. Hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to both Align and to me, and make sure you comment if you have absolutely any questions. Alright guys, thank you for watching, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.